Good evening and welcome once again to another edition of CentralCoastLive.com's presentation of Vintner's Vision. I'm your host, Pepper Daniels, from the Crush 92.5, The Perfect Blend, the Central Coast's only wine country-related radio station. And we've got great partners with us tonight to go through some food and wine pairings. On my left, our restaurant partner is Granada Bistro Lounge out of San Luis Obispo. And on my right, August Ridge Winery out of Creston, California, which is a really cool part of the Central Coast wine region that we're going to get into here tonight.
So August Ridge is a winery out in Creston, as you said, specializes in Italian varietals. The style of wine that we make is more towards the Italian style. And by that I mean we emphasize mid-palate complexity, a lot of spice, a lot of pepper, very long structured finishes. So you end up with wines that are pleasant to drink and pair easily with foods. And I think some of the foods that we have here today are going to be a good example of how you can use these wines.
And we've got a very exciting food partner here tonight from San Luis Obispo, the Granada Bistro and Lounge, which is located in downtown San Luis Obispo. And right next to me is Kayleigh Sharp. She's with the marketing department from Granada. And on her left is Kimberly Lemons. She's the chef at Granada. So let's start with just a quick basic about the restaurant. Downtown San Luis Obispo, Marsh and Morrow is the intersection, right?
Exactly. Thanks for having us. And yeah, we're a small little bistro, hole in the wall.
Lots of construction.
Lots of construction currently, but that is going to be taken care of. But yeah, we serve wine from all over the world. And we have great food, which our chef Kimberly makes. And yeah, we're just a fun little joint downtown.
And let me clarify by hole in the wall, it's the nicest hole in the wall you're probably ever going to go to.
The nicest
hole in the wall
far.
only refers to the size of the place.
Yeah, it's very small. It's
Because
not actually a hole.
It's very small. And the construction, I understand, is retrofitting, like, getting the building safe and that sort of thing, because there's a lot of that going on in downtown SLO.
Exactly. We're expanding into a hotel, and so it's part of the expansion, but it kind of adds a little bit to the charm of the place. So it's fun. It's a fun place.
Great. Well, we're going to get into the great food that they've prepared for us tonight and the great wines that they've come from August Ridge. Tell me about how you got into making wine in the first place. This is a long family tradition for you and your family.
So the August Ridge comes from two traditions. My wife Jill is from an Italian tradition, and the Italian food, wine, family, friends is very strong in her family. And my family's grown grapes in the Central Valley for about 120 years.
Wow.
So the two of them come together. We ended up starting this project about 12 years ago, I guess now, and developed the property, planted the vineyard, built the house, built the winery, made the wines, and here we are today. So it's been a great journey. And
so you grew up around growing grapes, obviously, and you said from the valley. We're talking about the San Joaquin Valley, the Central Valley,
yes.
Over by Fresno, right?
Yeah.
When it was your time to delve into this on your own, were there connections between the terrain of Creston and the grapes that you grew up around, or did you go into it knowing, well, I could just give me a piece of land, I can grow any kind of grape?
That's a great question. So the grapes that my family grew were table grapes and raisins.
Okay.
Some of them ended up in the jug white wines made in the valley throughout the last century. I'm sort of the black sheep going off doing the wine thing.
Okay.
But that's okay. But grapevines themselves, I mean, the way they grow, for table grapes or raisins, they respond the same way to different things, and you're trying to manage them in a way to produce a certain result. So that transfers over easily.
Excellent. And what about Creston? Let's tell people about Creston. Creston is a small part, a very small area of the eastern part of Central Coast wine country, not necessarily associated with the so-called famous 46 West, 46 East that gets a lot of publicity in this area. This is another cool little area of the county. I think of Creston, I think of cowboys, and I think of rodeo. And it's a rangeland sort of place, isn't it?
It is. It's traditionally either was farmed in sugar beets or cattle, depending on which cycle that it went through when it got there. We ended up there because, for a couple reasons really. Rolling hills, lots of rocky hills. We have, in our small vineyard, we have 5 different soil types, which really increase the complexity of the wine. The other thing that's really unknown about Creston is that it's actually one of the cooler places in the Paso Robles AVA.
It gets the credit for being hot. I mean, people think hot, 105, whatever, but it really does soften at night and certain times of the year, doesn't it?
So it's it's common to have 105, 110, but it may be 40 degrees that night.
Yeah.
And if you look at the way grapes grow, when there's sunlight shining on a grape, it wants to be hot, and it produces complexity. Flavor complexity builds acid and tannin structure. When there's no sunlight on the grape, it wants to be cold, because what happens if it's not covered with sunlight is basically those things evaporate out of the grape, which is why areas that have a very warm nights tend to have a difficulty in producing wines with a lot of structure and a lot of delicacy. In Creston, we're fortunate that in the total heat measured in growing degree days, we're second coldest in the AVA, other than right on the coast. And that's one of the little sort of neat things about Creston, and it really helps us with our wines, produce wines that have a lot of flavor, a lot of intensity, and many, many different levels to work with when you either just want to sit and enjoy the glass or pair it with some food like we're doing tonight.
And most people would not know that about Creston. They would just assume it's a hot area, and that's what you deal with out there. I would also say that the town itself probably is about 250 to 300 people, maybe. And if everybody came to town, it may go, maybe 500 to 1,000? Because it's really made up of all of these little areas around the town community. So
yeah, the village reserve of Creston is maybe 125 people.
Right.
The area of Creston is much larger, and it's a community that has a very strong community sense, is very oriented towards the people, the neighborhood, and taking care of itself. It's a great place to live.
Yeah. So compared to Paso Robles, for a point of reference, it's very, very tiny. So I just want to point that out there.
Yes.
Now, Jill, tell us about the history of your family and the history and the Italian heritage. So this is something that's been a part of your life ever since you were a little girl?
Yep, my dad is my grandparents came over from Italy, and as it turns out, they were from the same town, but they met actually in Colorado, and so both first generation, and my uncle and my grandpa, they would all make wine in the basement of their cellars in Colorado. And so John has seen that whole process. They do olives as well, and now we do olives, and we actually just got to go back 2 years ago, and my family's still there, and we got to visit and share a big meal with my relatives in Italy, and it's, wine and food has always been a big part of our everyday life.
I was very excited to see the lineup of wines that we have tonight, and I saw the pattern right away. I said, it's Italian, it's Italian.